The first wave of aliens crossed the dusty ground with terrible speed. They moved like insects, their many-jointed legs carrying them forward in quick bursts. Their weapons were raised and ready. Their clustered eyes scanned the human defenses, looking for weaknesses. Cole watched them approach. He had placed a small metal pole exactly 500 meters from the main dome. When the first aliens crossed that marker, he gave the order, "Fire." The industrial lasers erupted with blinding light. Beams of pure energy cut across the battlefield, slicing through the alien soldiers like hot knives through paper. Bodies fell, their armored shells splitting open and spilling dark fluid onto the red dust. The pulse rifles joined in, adding their sharp cracks to the roar of the heavy weapons. For a moment, it seemed like the attack would fail immediately. Dozens of aliens died in the first 10 seconds. Their ranks broke apart as survivors scrambled for cover, but they did not retreat. Almost instantly, the aliens adapted. They spread out wider, using every rock and ridge for protection. They moved in patterns that made them harder to hit. They were learning the timing of the laser bursts and dodging between shots. "They are fast learners," Patricia said from the sensor station. "Each wave will be more dangerous than the last." The aliens returned fire. Their weapons spat globs of superheated plasma that sailed through the air like burning meteors. When the plasma hit the dome walls, it stuck and began eating through the reinforced metal. Screams erupted from the eastern position as 3 defenders were caught in a plasma burst. Their bodies burned before anyone could reach them. Hannah led a squad to plug the gap. She fired her rifle from the hip, dropping 2 aliens as they tried to rush the breach. Behind her, a miner named Joe Callahan swung a metal pipe into an alien's head, crushing its sensory cluster. Another defender fell with a plasma wound in his chest. The battle lasted 47 minutes. When it was over, 81 alien bodies littered the ground in front of the outpost. Some were already dissolving in the thin atmosphere, their biological matter breaking down without the support of their living ships above. The humans had lost 4 people. 2 miners caught by plasma fire, 1 soldier killed while holding a breach, and a young geologist named Maria Santos, who had frozen at her post and been cut down before anyone could help her. Minu worked through the night on the wounded. 7 people with serious burns. 3 with broken bones from collapsing walls. 1 with a piece of alien shell embedded in his shoulder. She saved all of them, though some would never fight again. Cole walked among the bodies, both human and alien. He stopped beside Maria's remains and said a quiet word for her soul. She had been 24 years old. She liked to collect unusual rocks and send pictures of them to her mother on Earth. Now she would never send another. "Message home, Commander," Hannah said, approaching with her rifle slung over her shoulder. "They will be back. I know. We hurt them badly, but they can afford to lose hundreds. We cannot afford to lose anyone." "I know that too." The second assault came 6 hours later, under cover of the planet's long night. This time, the aliens brought something new. Giant creatures nearly 4 meters tall lumbered across the battlefield, their massive bodies covered with spines and weapons. Biological tanks, bred for siege warfare. Their plasma cannons fired continuous streams instead of single shots, melting through the defensive barriers like ice in a furnace. The northern laser emplacement was destroyed in the first 5 minutes. Douglas ran through the chaos with 3 volunteers, trying to repair the damage while enemy fire rained down around them. "I need more time," he shouted into his communicator. "You have what you have," Cole replied. "Make it work." They made it work. Douglas bypassed the damaged power, coupling with a piece of wire and a prayer. The laser came back online just in time to cut one of the giant creatures in half. "It's death!" Scream echoed across the battlefield, high and terrible, and for a moment, the alien advance faltered. But only for a moment. The fighting continued until dawn. By then, another 8 humans were dead. The outer perimeter had been breached in 2 places. Ammunition was running low. Power reserves were draining fast. Cole gathered his remaining officers in the command center. They looked exhausted, their faces smeared with dust and blood and burn marks. But they were still standing. "Report," Cole said. 51 people still alive, Hannah said. 28 can still fight. We have about 60% of our ammunition left. 1 laser emplacement destroyed, 1 damaged. The western dome is on fire, but we are containing it. Enemy casualties? Cole asked. We have killed over 200 of them, Patricia said. But their dropships keep bringing more from the fleet. They have an endless supply of soldiers. Not endless, Cole said, remembering what old George had told him. Kevin, what is happening with their main fleet? Kevin pulled up the sensor display. His eyes widened. Commander, something strange is happening. 3 of their largest ships have stopped responding. Internal readings are chaotic. It looks like damage? Maybe explosions inside? The poison, Patricia said suddenly. The environmental contamination from our mining operations. Their ships are biological. If they are absorbing nutrients from the atmosphere, they are absorbing our industrial waste too. How badly is it affecting them? Hard to say, but look at this. She pointed to footage from the battle. The alien soldiers in the second wave were slower than the first wave. Their movements were less coordinated. Some of them collapsed without being shot. The planet is killing them. Cole felt something he had not felt since the invasion began. Hope? So, if we can hold long enough, the poison will do what we cannot. That is the theory, Patricia said. But we do not know how long it will take. Days, maybe. Can we last that long? Nobody answered. Nobody needed to. The third day brought the worst fighting yet. The aliens had learned from their previous attacks. They came in waves, one after another, never giving the humans time to rest or repair. They targeted the power generator, trying to cut off the outpost's electricity. Douglas fought like a madman, using every trick he knew to keep the systems running. Reroute power from the empty domes, he shouted to his engineers. Bypass the safety protocols. I do not care if we blow ourselves up tomorrow as long as we survive today. The aliens also brought new weapons. Creatures that could burrow under the ground, tunneling beneath the defenses to attack from below. They burst up through the floor of the southern dome, killing 6 people before Hannah's squad drove them back. Douglas flooded the tunnels with coolant from the reactor, freezing the burrowers in their tracks. I did not know you could do that, Hannah said. Neither did I, Douglas admitted, but it worked. By the end of the third day, Bravo 7 had been reduced to a single dome. The mining equipment was destroyed. The outer habitats were ruins. 41 of the original 63 inhabitants were still alive, and less than half could still fight. But the alien losses were catastrophic. Kevin, who had not slept in over 40 hours, gave the count with bloodshot eyes. They have lost over 800 soldiers. More than half their ground forces are dead. And Commander, the fleet is in trouble. I am detecting failures across multiple ships. Whatever is poisoning them, it is working faster now. Cole allowed himself to smile. It was a grim smile, without joy, but it was real. Then we keep fighting, he said. Every hour we survive, they get weaker. Every soldier they lose, they cannot replace. We just need to outlast them. Can we? Mina asked. She had been operating on wounded for 3 days straight. Her hands trembled with exhaustion. Cole looked at her, at all of them. Miners and scientists. And soldiers, covered in dirt and blood, running on nothing but stubbornness and fear. We have to, he said, because the alternative is dying. And I did not come all the way out here to die on some forgotten rock in the middle of nowhere. Hannah laughed. It was a tired, broken sound, but it was still laughter. "Then let us show them what humans are made of," she said. Outside, the twin suns began to rise. The fourth day was about to begin, and somewhere in orbit, the alien fleet was dying. The planet had no real name. The scientists called it Kepler 442b, but the people who lived there just called it the Rock. It was a harsh world with red dust, thin air, and two suns that burned orange in the sky. Nothing grew there. Nothing lived there except the humans, who had built their small outpost in the shadow of Iron Mountains. Commander Ethan Cole stood at the window of the command center and watched the suns go down. He was a tall man with gray in his hair and deep lines on his face. He had served in the Frontier Corps for 25 years, and this forgotten mining outpost was supposed to be his last assignment before retirement. 63 people lived under his command. Miners who dug iron from the mountains, scientists who studied the rocks, engineers who kept the machines running, and 12 soldiers who had almost nothing to do because nothing ever happened here. Lieutenant Hannah Morris walked up beside him. She was young, maybe 30, with sharp eyes and short brown hair. She had been stationed here for 8 months and never complained once. That made her special. Most people hated this place. "Quiet night," she said. "Quiet is good," Cole replied. "Quiet means everyone goes home alive." The outpost was called Bravo 7. It was one of hundreds of small human settlements scattered across the galaxy. Earth's government liked to plant flags on every rock that had something worth mining. They would send a few dozen people, give them basic equipment, and forget about them. Bravo 7 had been forgotten for a long time. Supply ships came twice a year. Messages from home took weeks to arrive. The people here had learned to depend on each other because no one else was coming to help. Dr. Patricia Lang appeared in the doorway. She was the chief scientist, a woman in her 50s with tired eyes and gray streaks in her red hair. She looked worried. "Commander, you need to see something," she said. Cole followed her to the sensor station where a young technician named Kevin Price was staring at his screen. Kevin was barely 22, fresh from the academy, and still learning how things worked on the frontier. Right now he looked confused. "I'd picked up something entering the system about 3 hours ago," Kevin explained. "I thought it was just rocks falling through space. But look at this." He pointed at the screen. Cole leaned in and saw dozens of small dots moving across the display. They were not moving like rocks. They were slowing down. They were changing direction. They were heading straight for the planet. "Ships," Hannah said quietly. "Not ours," Patricia added. "Humanity had met aliens before. 40 years ago, a group called the Veth Consortium had made contact with Earth. The Veth were a collection of 7 different species who controlled a large part of the galaxy. They were not enemies, but they were not really friends either. They thought humans were young and foolish and too aggressive for their own good. They watched humanity spread across the stars with careful eyes, waiting to see what would happen. But these ships did not look like Veth ships. "Try to contact them," Cole ordered. "Use standard greeting protocols." Kevin worked the communication controls. He sent messages in every language the computer knew. He broadcast on every frequency. For 6 hours, they waited for a response. Nothing came back. The ships just kept coming. By midnight, the alien fleet was in orbit around the planet. Kevin counted 47 vessels. Some were small, the size of human shuttles. Others were enormous, bigger than anything humans had ever built. They circled the world in silence, their sensors sweeping across the surface, like searchlights looking for something in the dark. Cole called his senior staff to the command center. Patricia was there, along with Hannah, Chief Engineer Douglas Webb, and Medical Officer Dr. Nina Reyes. They gathered around the main table and waited for Cole to speak. Before he could say anything, the communication system crackled to life. The voice that came through was not human. It clicked and buzzed like insects speaking in chorus. The translation computer worked for a moment, then produced words they could understand. Terran presence on designated harvesting world is prohibited. You will surrender your installation and submit to processing. Resistance will result in termination. You have 1 rotation cycle to comply. The message ended. Silence filled the room. Processing, Nina said slowly. What does that mean? Nobody answered, but they all understood. Whatever these aliens were, they did not see humans as equals. They did not want to negotiate or make deals. They saw humans as obstacles to be removed. Or maybe as resources to be harvested. Douglas Webb, a big man with grease-stained hands and a thick beard, spoke first. How many people can we evacuate? Our shuttle holds 20, Cole said. Even if we could get past their ships, which we cannot, we would leave 43 people behind to die. So we cannot run, Hannah said. It was not a question. No, we cannot run. Patricia pulled up everything the computer knew about alien species. She searched for anything that matched the ships in orbit, the clicking voices on the radio, the threat of harvesting and processing. She found nothing. These creatures were unknown. They were not in any database. They had never contacted humanity before. They might be from beyond Veth space, she said. There are regions of the galaxy even the consortium has not explored. If these things come from there, then nobody knows they exist, Cole finished. And nobody will come looking when they destroy us. The room fell silent again. Cole looked at the faces around him. These were not warriors. They were miners and scientists and doctors. They had signed up for quiet careers on a forgotten world. They had families back on Earth waiting for messages that might never come. They had dreams and plans and lives that did not include dying on a red rock at the edge of known space. But there was something else in their eyes. Something hard and stubborn. Something that refused to simply give up and wait for death. Hannah was the first to speak. Then we fight, she said. We have weapons. We have walls. We have 1 rotation cycle to prepare. That is 24 hours. We make them pay for every inch of ground. We make them remember that they came to the wrong planet. Cole studied her face. She was not being foolish or brave for the sake of being brave. She had calculated the odds and decided that fighting was better than surrendering. Better than being processed, whatever that meant. He looked at the others. Douglas nodded slowly. Patricia straightened her shoulders. Nina took a deep breath and did not look away. All right, Cole said. Get everyone to the armory. Tell them what is coming. Tell them we do not surrender. Tell them that if these things want our home, they will have to take it from our dead hands. He turned back to the window. The twin suns were rising again, casting long shadows across the red dust. Somewhere up there, 47 alien ships were preparing to destroy everything he had sworn to protect. Let us give them a fight they will never forget, Cole said, and the work began. On the 4th day, the aliens threw everything they had at the last human dome. Cole watched them come from his position on the observation platform. Every soldier, every war beast, every living weapon their ships had carried across the stars was now marching toward the outpost. The ground shook with their footsteps. The air filled with the clicking sounds of their alien speech. They knew they were dying. They knew the poison in this world was killing them from the inside. And they were determined to destroy the humans before they died. All positions, this is Commander Cole. He said into the communicator. This is the final push. They are throwing everything at us. Hold your ground. Make every shot count. We survive this. We survive everything. The aliens hit the defensive line like a wave crashing against rocks. Hannah fought at the northern breach with her rifle glowing hot in her hands. She had been fighting for 3 days without rest, and her body moved on pure instinct now. Aim, fire, reload. Aim, fire, reload. Beside her, miners and scientists held their positions with borrowed weapons and desperate courage. Some fought with metal pipes and mining tools when their guns ran empty. Lucy Tate, the young miner who had asked what happened if she missed, stood her ground against a charging alien twice her size. Her first shot went wide. Her second hit the creature in its sensor cluster. It fell at her feet, still twitching. "I did not miss that time," she said to no one. Douglas was covered in burns and cuts from flying debris, but he refused to leave the generator. The power systems were failing one by one, and only his constant repairs kept the lights on and the weapons firing. His engineers had been reduced to 2, both wounded, both still working. "Just a little longer," Douglas told the machines, speaking to them like old friends. "Just hold together a little longer." Patricia stayed at her sensor station, coordinating the defense with information she gathered from the few cameras still working. She had taken a plasma burn to her left arm early in the morning, but she had not stopped for treatment. There was no time. "Enemy concentration at the western wall," she reported. "They are trying to flank us. Hannah, redirect fire to Sector 7. "On it," Hannah replied, already moving. Nina operated on the wounded as fast as they arrived. Her medical bay had become a nightmare of blood and screaming, but she moved through it with calm precision. She had run out of proper bandages hours ago and was using strips of clothing and rags. She had run out of painkillers the day before and was relying on whispered encouragement and sometimes lies to keep her patients still. "You are going to be fine," she told a young engineer with plasma burns covering half his body. "Just hold on a little longer." He died 3 minutes later. She closed his eyes, said a word for his soul, and moved to the next patient. Old George Hartley had refused to leave the storage room where Cole had found him. When a group of aliens broke through a side entrance and rushed toward the generator, George was waiting for them. He killed 2 with his pistol before they reached him. The third alien cut him down, but his shots had given Douglas time to seal the breach. "Brave old fool," Douglas muttered, even as he welded the door shut. The battle reached its peak in late afternoon. A massive creature, larger than any they had seen before, crashed through the reinforced western wall. It was a living siege engine, its body bristling with weapons and spines. Smaller aliens poured through the breach behind it, screaming in their clicking language. Hannah emptied her rifle into the beast, but it barely slowed. 2 soldiers charged it with explosives and were torn apart before they could reach it. The creature pushed deeper into the dome, crushing equipment and people under its massive weight. For a terrible moment, Cole thought everything was lost. Then Kevin's voice crackled over the intercom, high-pitched with excitement. "Commander, the fleet. Look at the fleet." Cole glanced at the nearest screen. The orbital display showed chaos. Half the alien ships were dark, their life signs gone. Others were breaking apart, their organic hulls splitting open as the poison in the atmosphere finally overwhelmed them. Drop ships that had been carrying reinforcements were falling back to their dying motherships. "The ground forces are receiving recall signals," Kevin continued. "They are trying to retreat." Even as he spoke, something changed in the alien attack. The massive beast stumbled, its movements becoming jerky and uncoordinated. The infantry around it slowed, their formations breaking apart. Some collapsed where they stood, their armored bodies suddenly brittle and cracking. The poison had reached a critical point. The aliens were dying. "Keep firing," Cole ordered. "Do not let them retreat. Not a single one leaves this planet alive." The defenders pressed their advantage. Wounded soldiers left the medical bay to rejoin the fight. Miners who had been hiding in storage rooms emerged with whatever weapons they could find. Even Patricia abandoned her station to pick up a fallen rifle. The giant creature fell with a crash that shook the entire dome. Its body split open, revealing organs that were black and rotting instead of healthy. The smaller aliens tried to flee toward their dropships, but the humans cut them down one by one. By sunset, not a single alien remained standing. Cole walked through the battlefield in the fading light. Bodies lay everywhere, human and alien mixed together in the dust. The smell of burning and death hung in the air. But there were also survivors. People sitting against broken walls, too exhausted to move. People helping each other stand. People crying with relief and grief and shock. Hannah found him near the western breach, standing over the body of the giant creature. "We did it," she said. Her voice was hollow. "We actually did it." Cole nodded slowly. "We did, but look at the cost." 29 humans had died in the battle. Nearly half of everyone who had lived on Bravo 7 was gone. Some of the bodies would never be recovered, destroyed beyond recognition by plasma fire or alien claws. Others lay peacefully, almost as if they were sleeping. Old George Hartley was among the dead. So was Maria Santos, and Joe Callahan, and the young engineer Nina had tried to save, and so many others. People with families waiting for them back on Earth. People with dreams they would never fulfill. "The fleet is finished," Kevin reported over the intercom. "The last of their ships just broke apart. Nothing left but debris. And Commander, I am picking up a distress signal response. The Terran Patrol received our message. They are on their way." "How long?" Cole asked. 36 hours. They are coming as fast as they can." 36 hours. 2 more days. But the fighting was over. All they had to do now was survive, and they had already proven they could do that. Nina emerged from the medical bay, covered in blood that was not all alien. She looked at the bodies, at the destruction, at the scattered survivors. "How many wounded?" Cole asked. 12 with serious injuries. "I can save most of them if the rescue fleet brings proper supplies." She paused. "I lost 3 on the table. I could not." There was not enough. Her voice broke. Cole put his hand on her shoulder. "You did everything possible. More than anyone could ask. It was not enough. It was. We are alive because of you. All of us." Douglas limped over, his leg wrapped in bloody bandages. "Generator is stable. Power should hold until the rescue arrives. The dome is damaged but intact. We have shelter, water, and air. Everything else can wait." Patricia joined them, her injured arm finally wrapped in a proper sling. "I have been analyzing the alien remains. The poison worked exactly as George predicted. Their biological systems could not filter out the industrial contaminants in our atmosphere. The longer they stayed, the more damage accumulated in their tissues. By the 4th day, they were already dying before we shot them. This planet killed them," Hannah said. "We just helped." "We helped a lot," Cole replied. He looked at the red horizon, where the twin suns were setting for what felt like the first time in forever. But George was right. This world fought back. And together, we won. They stood in silence for a long moment, watching the darkness fall. Somewhere above them, the wreckage of the alien fleet drifted through space, carrying the bodies of creatures who had thought humans would be easy prey. They had been very wrong. The next 24 hours were the busiest the Outpost had ever seen. Douglas. Webb took charge of turning mining equipment into weapons. The industrial lasers that cut through solid rock could cut through almost anything. He mounted them on platforms facing the open ground where enemies would have to approach. The heavy excavators that dug iron from the mountains became walls and barriers. He positioned them to create choke points where attackers would be forced into narrow paths with no cover. These lasers were not made for combat, Douglas explained to Cole as they worked. They will overheat if we fire them too long. But for short bursts, they will burn through anything. How short? Cole asked. Maybe 30 seconds of continuous fire before they need to cool down. Then we make every second count. The habitat domes were the biggest problem. They were made of lightweight materials designed to keep air in and radiation out. They were never meant to stop weapons fire. Douglas ordered his engineers to pile compressed dirt and scrap metal against the outer walls. It would not stop a direct hit, but it might slow down smaller attacks. Hannah gathered every person who could hold a weapon. The 12 soldiers were trained for combat, but most of the miners and scientists had never fired a gun in their lives. She had 24 hours to teach them the basics. Point the weapon at the enemy, she told them. Pull the trigger. Keep pulling until the enemy stops moving. If your weapon overheats, find cover and wait for it to cool. If you run out of ammunition, find a dead friend and take theirs. Any questions? A young miner named Lucy Tate raised her hand. She was barely 19, with freckles and wide eyes that showed her fear. What if we miss? Then you shoot again, Hannah said. These things are coming to kill us. Missing is not an option. She did not mention that the aliens outnumbered them badly. She did not mention that their weapons were probably more advanced. She did not mention that the odds of survival were almost zero. Those things would not help anyone fight better. Patricia worked with Kevin at the sensor station, trying to learn everything they could about the approaching enemy. The alien ships had strange shapes, curved and twisted like seashells or bones. They did not look like they were made of metal. They looked almost alive. Biological technology, Patricia said, studying the readings. Their ships might actually be living creatures, or at least grown from living tissue. Is that good or bad for us? Kevin asked. I do not know yet, but everything that lives can also die. Nina prepared the medical bay for casualties. She had enough supplies to treat maybe 20 serious injuries. After that, she would have to improvise. She asked for volunteers to help carry wounded from the fighting positions to her operating table. 7 people stepped forward. She taught them how to stop bleeding, how to stabilize broken bones, how to recognize when someone was dying and needed immediate help. I was a combat medic before I came here, Nina told them. I have seen battle before. The most important thing is to stay calm. Panic kills more people than bullets. Breathe slowly. Focus on the task in front of you. We will get through this together. She did not believe her own words, but she said them anyway. Sometimes hope was the only medicine that worked. As the hours passed, Cole walked through the outpost, checking on every position and every person. He answered questions when he could and admitted when he did not know something. He shook hands with miners who had never spoken to him before. He thanked scientists for their courage. He told the soldiers that he was proud to serve beside them. In a storage room near the back of the main dome, he found an old man sitting alone. His name was George Hartley, and he was 73 years old. He had worked as a geologist for 50 years and should have retired long ago, but he loved rocks more than he loved comfort. Now he sat on a crate, holding a small pistol in his wrinkled hands. Commander, George said, looking up. I know I am too old to fight, but I am not too old to die on my feet. Cole sat down beside him. How long have you been out here, George? 12 years on this rock. 20 more on other worlds before that. I have spent my whole life on the frontier. Never thought it would end like this. It has not ended yet. George smiled, showing worn teeth. You are a good liar, Commander. That is a useful skill for a leader. Cole laughed despite himself. I have had practice. Let me tell you something, George said. I have studied this planet for 12 years. Every rock, every mineral, every trace element in the soil. I know this world better than anyone alive. And I know something that might help us. Tell me. The mining operations have been poisoning this planet since the day we arrived. Heavy metals, chemical waste, industrial byproducts. We filter it out of our air and water, so it does not hurt us. But anything that breathes the outside air, anything that absorbs nutrients from the soil, is slowly being poisoned. Cole thought about this. You think the aliens might be affected? If their technology is biological, like Dr. Lang says, then yes. They might not notice at first, but the longer they stay, the sicker they will get. This planet is toxic to anything that did not grow up here. How long before the poison would kill them? George shrugged. Days, maybe. Weeks at most. It depends on how their bodies work. But I guarantee you, this world will fight back even if we cannot. Cole clapped the old man on the shoulder. Thank you, George. That is the best news I've heard all day. He left the storage room with a new plan forming in his mind. They did not need to defeat the aliens completely. They just needed to hold on long enough for the planet itself to do the work. The deadline arrived with the rising of the twin suns. Cole gathered everyone in the main dome for one final briefing. 63 faces looked back at him, some terrified, some determined, all waiting for him to speak. In a few hours, they will come, Cole said. They think we are weak. They think we will surrender. They think this will be easy. Let us prove them wrong. Every minute we survive is a victory. Every enemy we kill is a message. We are not sheep waiting for slaughter. We are humans. And humans do not go down without a fight. A cheer went up from the crowd. It was not loud, but it was real. These people were afraid, but they were ready. Kevin's voice crackled over the intercom. Commander, I have movement. Dropships are descending from the fleet. 14 of them, coming in from the northeast. Cole took a deep breath. Everyone to your positions. This is it. The crowd scattered, each person moving to their assigned spot. Hannah took command of the northern defense line. Douglas stayed near the generator, ready to keep the power flowing. Patricia monitored the sensors. Nini waited in the medical bay with her volunteers, and Cole climbed to the observation platform at the top of the main dome, where he could see the entire battlefield spread out before him. The dropships appeared on the horizon, like dark seeds falling from the sky. They descended slowly, deliberately, as if they had all the time in the world. When they touched down 2 kilometers from the outpost, they split open along their sides, revealing what was inside. The creatures that poured out were nightmares given form. 2 meters tall, with too many joints in their limbs. Blue-black shells that looked like armor. Heads that were clusters of eyes and sensors with no recognizable face. Weapons that seemed to grow from their arms like extra bones. Cole counted them as they formed ranks. 300. Maybe more. 5-to-1 odds. He had faced worse. At least, that was what he told himself. Hold your fire, he said into his communicator. Wait for my command. The aliens began their advance. The rescue fleet arrived 36 hours later, just as Kevin had predicted. Captain Victor Kane of the cruiser Relentless was the first to set foot on the outpost. He was a decorated officer with 20 years of service, and he had seen many strange things in his career. But nothing had prepared him for what he found on Kepler-442b. The habitat domes were shattered and burning. The ground was covered with alien corpses in various stages of decay. Mining equipment lay in ruins, mixed with the wreckage of biological weapons and war machines. And standing among the destruction were 34 human beings, battered and bloody and exhausted beyond measure. But very much alive. Kane found Commander Cole sitting on a piece of broken wall, watching the rescue shuttles descend. The older man looked like he had aged 10 years in 4 days. His uniform was torn. His face was covered with cuts and bruises. But his eyes were clear, and when he stood to greet Kane, his handshake was firm. Commander Cole? Kane asked, though he already knew the answer. That is right. We received your distress signal. Honestly, We expected to find bodies. What happened here? Cole looked around at the devastation, at the alien corpses, at the survivors being loaded onto medical transports. He considered the question for a long moment before answering. They underestimated us, he said finally. Everyone always does. The evacuation took most of the day. The wounded were transported to the medical bays aboard Kane's ships, where proper doctors with proper equipment could treat their injuries. The healthy survivors were given food, water, and a chance to sleep for the first time in days. The dead were carefully recovered and prepared for transport back to Earth. 20-9 bodies. 29 flags that would be sent to families who were still waiting for messages that would never come. Nina Rios collapsed the moment she set foot on the Relentless. She had been operating on willpower alone for the last 12 hours, and her body finally gave out. The ship's medical officer found her unconscious in the corridor and carried her to a bed, where she slept for 16 hours straight. Douglas Webb refused medical treatment until he had personally inspected the Outpost generator one last time. He wanted to make sure it was properly shut down, that the reactor would not melt down and poison the planet even more. Only when he was satisfied did he allow himself to be evacuated. Patricia Lang spent the journey back to Earth writing her report. She analyzed the alien remains, studied the sensor data, and tried to understand exactly what had happened. The species, she concluded, was part of a larger collective that roamed the galaxy, looking for worlds to harvest. They had destroyed dozens of civilizations before encountering humanity. Kepler 442b was their first total defeat. Hannah Morris sat alone in her quarters, staring at the wall. She had not spoken more than 10 words since the rescue fleet arrived. The things she had seen, the things she had done, would stay with her for the rest of her life. But she was alive. That had to count for something. Kevin Price became something of a celebrity among the rescue crew. The young sensor technician, who had first spotted the invasion and first noticed its end, was asked to tell his story again and again. He did not enjoy the attention, but he understood that people needed to hear what had happened. They needed to know that ordinary humans on an ordinary outpost had done the impossible. When the news reached Earth, it spread like fire. The Veth Consortium, the coalition of alien species that had watched humanity with careful skepticism for 40 years, responded with diplomatic silence. But their private communications, later captured by human intelligence, contained a phrase that appeared again and again whenever they discussed the battle. The phrase translated roughly as, "the ones who will not break." Commander Ethan Cole received the Terran Star of Valor, the highest military honor available to a frontier officer. The ceremony was held on Earth, in a grand hall filled with politicians and generals and reporters. Cole stood at the podium in his dress uniform, looking out at the sea of faces. He gave a short speech thanking his crew, honoring the dead, and reminding everyone that the victory belonged to all of them, not just to him. Then he stepped down and quietly left the building, avoiding the crowds who wanted to shake his hand and take his picture. 2 weeks later, he was back on Kepler 442b. The planet looked different now. Cleanup crews had removed the alien remains. Construction teams were building new domes to replace the ones destroyed in the battle. The mining operations were scheduled to resume within the year. You could have any assignment in the fleet, Kane had told him before he left. Any ship, any station, any planet. Why come back here? Cole had thought about the question before answering. Because someone has to rebuild. And these people, the ones who survived, they deserve to see their home restored. I was their commander when the aliens came. I should be their commander when we recover. Hannah Morris came with him. She had been offered promotions, transfers, command of her own unit. She had turned them all down. Where else would I go? She asked when Cole questioned her decision. This is where I belong. Patricia continued her research, eventually leading a team that developed defenses against biological invasion technology. Her work would save millions of lives in the decades to come, though she never stopped thinking about the 29 people who had died on Bravo-7. Douglas received a patent for his improvised reactor modifications, which became standard equipment on frontier outposts throughout human space. He used the money to establish a school for young engineers from poor colonies who could not afford traditional education. Nina published her research on battlefield medicine and became a professor at the most prestigious medical school on Earth. She trained a generation of doctors who would serve on the frontier, but she never forgot the patients she had lost. Their names were written on a small card she kept in her pocket until the day she died. Kevin eventually became a navigation officer on long-range survey ships. He explored regions of space that no human had ever seen. Sometimes, when he looked at his sensors, he would remember the night when 47 alien ships appeared in his display and changed everything. Old George Hartley was buried on Kepler 442b. In a small cemetery overlooking the Iron Mountains he had studied for 12 years. His gravestone read, "He knew this world, and he helped it fight back." Lucy Tate, the young miner who had asked what happened if she missed, stayed on the planet for another 20 years. She eventually became the chief of mining operations and led the most productive extraction team in the sector. She never missed an important shot again. The Harvest Swarm, as Patricia had named the alien species, never returned to human space. Reports filtered through Veth intelligence channels about their activities in distant regions of the galaxy, but they avoided any world claimed by humanity. When other species asked why, the swarm's answer was always the same. That species is contaminated. Their worlds are poison. They are not worth the cost. Humanity took this as a compliment. On the 5th anniversary of the battle, Cole stood alone at the memorial that had been built near the main dome. 29 names were carved into black stone, each one representing a life given in defense of their home. Flowers had been placed at the base, along with small tokens left by survivors and their families. Cole read each name silently, remembering faces and voices and moments that would never come again. George Hartley, Maria Santos, Joe Callahan. All the others who had stood their ground when running was impossible. "We won," Cole said quietly, speaking to the ghosts he imagined were listening. "They came here thinking we were easy prey. They thought we would surrender, that we would submit to processing, that we would simply die when they told us to. They were wrong." He placed his hand on the cold stone. "You taught them something important. You taught them that humans do not break. No matter how bad the odds, no matter how powerful the enemy, we fight. We always fight. And sometimes, against all reason, we win." Behind him, the twin suns were beginning their slow climb above the horizon. The sky turned from black to purple to orange, painting the red dust in shades of gold and amber. New construction hummed in the distance. New people walked the paths between the domes, some of them survivors. Some of them newcomers who had heard the stories and wanted to be part of something larger than themselves. Bravo 7 was no longer just a forgotten mining outpost. It was a symbol, a reminder that humanity had faced impossible odds and refused to surrender. A warning to any species that might think humans were easy targets. Cole turned away from the memorial and walked toward the new command center. There was work to do, always work to do. Reports to file, schedules to approve, people to manage. The ordinary business of running a frontier outpost. But as he walked, he allowed himself a small smile. They had called this planet the Rock, a harsh, forgettable world with nothing to offer but iron and dust. Now, it was something more. It was home. It was a monument to courage. It was proof that 63 ordinary humans could stand against an alien armada and win. And that, Cole thought, was worth remembering. The suns rose higher, and a new day began on Kepler 442b.